One of the most iconic and universally known characters in the film industry is British Secret Service agent James Bond. Created by writer Ian Fleming, his first appearance as 007 was in the 1953 novel Casino Royale. Fleming would go on to make a further 12 novels and 2 short stories before eventually passing away in 1964. The first Bond film hit our screens in 1962 and was an adaptation of Fleming's 1958 novel Dr. No. Sean Connery was the first James Bond and was cast in the role even after Fleming stated he thought he was not suitable. Connery went on to be arguably the most successful, recognisable Bond, even today. Let's jump back to 2023, and even after Connery's death in 2020, woke culture still think he's unsuitable and are trying to expunge him from our history. Since the very first Bond in 1962, there have been a further 11 actors that have played the role in major films. That's covering 27 films right up until No Time to Die in 2021. There's also been a further 6 actors that have either played or voiced Bond in unofficial films, TV series or radio shows between 1953 and 2012. You're probably saying, thanks for the history lesson, but what's your problem? Okay, let's jump back into 2023. And my question is, since inception almost 70 years ago, James Bond has always been played by a white male. However, today, we seem to be getting told that the next James Bond should be or will be played by a black male. Why? Let's look at the man handing over the baton he's held since 2005, Daniel Craig. He was initially considered a poor choice by some, even a disaster, and he was sneered at for being bland and boring. However, his biggest problem, his biggest issue, was that he had blonde hair and blue eyes. What do you really think that is coming over the hill? However, with regards to Black Bond, is this just a bridge too far? Could the change in the ethnic makeup offer greater opportunities to explore different storylines, heightening the focus on issues such as discrimination, race relations and stereotypes? But thinking about it, is that really what we want? Or is that not just the life of every minority, particularly in the West? Would a black James Bond offer a more realistic portrayal of espionage and the issues that a spy might really face? That last statement gets you thinking, because in nearly everybody's mind, when we think about a British spy, we invariably think of somebody white. And you could argue that needs to change. So let's look at the cons. James Bond has traditionally been portrayed as a white British character, and changing this could upset some of the die-hard fans of the franchise. In other words, fortunately or unfortunately, there are still some people that will not be receptive to the idea of a black James Bond, and they may or will criticise the film on that basis. The actor chosen to play Bond will be under increased pressure and scrutiny to deliver a performance of high level and competence, which is standard. But when you think about it, if no one believes in the idea of a black James Bond from the outset, what are the chances of success? So, who are the runners and riders? Idris Elba. Elba has already ruled himself out of the running, and they say at 50 years old is likely too old for the role anyway. What I would say about Idris is, for 50 years old, in true black man style, Idris, you're looking good. Daniel Kaluuya, star of Get Out and winner of an Oscar for Judas and the Black Messiah. John Boyega, best known for his role in Star Wars. And last but not least, 12 Years a Slave actor Chiwetel Ejiofor. Now remember, before the franchise is completely botched up and keeping up with current trends, the next non-business savvy, franchise-destroying borefest will probably be an instalment of Jane Bond. However, that's a different story. Back to the issue in hand. There is a similar precedent with the 2014 remake of The Equalizer starring Denzel Washington. This was based on the 1985 TV series starring Edward Woodward. The difference here is that the original series ran for 4 seasons between 1985 to 1989, a total of 88 episodes. Also, there's a 25-year gap between the TV series and the first Equalizer film. So, it's very hard to recognise the parallels, and even for some middle-aged adults, even to remember the TV show. Moreover, it's hardly as well known, iconic or historic as James Bond. So changing the character's racial makeup is pretty insignificant. Similar can't be said about the new 15th Doctor Who Nkunti Gatwa. According to the Guinness Book of Records, Doctor Who is the longest running sci-fi series, with over 1,000 episodes running over 39 seasons. It's also watched in over 200 countries around the world. Figures released in the UK for March 2020, the same month the series ended, show Doctor Who's rating slipped to its lowest since 2005. The season finale of Series 12 had the lowest TV audience in the UK at 4.6 million, making it the lowest the show had ever had. Now, if you consider the average is 6.27 million, then that's a huge amount of viewers to lose. Strange how this coincided in the period where Jodie Whittaker, the first female Doctor, was in situ, where after a respectable initial boost in the first series was followed by a steady decline until she eventually left. My point being, this source of shows, after the initial interest, that the traditionalist boycott and the so-called progressives go on to something else to spoil for others in the name of much-needed social reform. Over to you, Nkunti. Another example can be found with the 2023 recently released Little Mermaid. Now, I'm sorry, there's so much misinformation here about the origins of the character that I'm gonna have to digress a little. Hans Christian Andersen created The Little Mermaid in 1836, and the original illustrations show she was not black or queer, as some online and offline would have you think. She was just a princess that fell in love with a young, handsome prince. Get it? I think we need to pay greater attention, because in the original book, The Little Mermaid was only 15 years old. But as I've said right the way through this show, that's another story. Disney's new film, starring singer-songwriter Halle Bailey as Ariel, already seems destined to failure, reading some of the reviews around Sebastian the Crab and Flounder the Fish alone. Every official reviewer seems to be trying their hardest to ignore the elephant in the room. But with over 3 million negative likes, I guess the public have really spoken, both black and white. My issue here is, why are we kicking The Little Mermaid around like a political football? This is about children. They're not interested in politics. Remember, racists are made and not born. And looking at the advertisement for the film, I can't help but see the reverse negative scenario for white children. Think about it. If they think they're being erased from society, I can only see the creation of resentment. We're taking the fun out of entertainment. Back to Bond. I agree with the sentiment that television should reflect the increasing changes in ethnic and racial diversity. However, personally, I don't agree with the cancelling, rehashing or minority washing of existing iconic characters such as James Bond. The people driving this current agenda, like me, I bet they don't even watch or follow James Bond. They follow and watch a new woke political agenda. And although they think they're doing right now, all I can see is there will be bigger problems down the road. Hypothetically, has anybody thought what this could say about our society? Or, as I'd expect, there's a massive failing at the box office. Or, what happens when we change from a black James Bond back to a white James Bond? As the saying goes, I think we're building a rod for our own backs. Television should reflect the nation's cultural diversity. So why not tap into the creative minds and create new black characters and heroes instead of going down this cancel culture ethos? As I personally don't find the fact that James Bond is traditionally a white male to be unacceptable. Think about the first very successful Marvel studio offering, the 1998 hit Blade. Mixed audiences, no politics, leading to nearly $500 million made over 3 films. That's even accounting for the annoying and awful acting of Ryan Reynolds in the third Blade trilogy, or even the success of the 2010 series Luther, starring one of the projected runners in the Bond stakes, Idris Elba. Luther has run for 5 seasons, recently ending with the 2023 Netflix film The Falling Sun. Now, we're to believe that there won't be a 6th season of Luther to look forward to, as novelist and creator Neil Cross has stated that he can't see himself knocking these out like sausages. Call me a cynic, but I don't know if I truly believe this is the last we've seen of Detective John Luther. And if it does carry on, are we to see a Bond-style election to determine who the next John Luther will be? Could it be a white actor that plays the role? No? So why is it different for James Bond? New black heroes and a will to grow these new black heroes instead of debating the cultural makeup of existing characters. For me, black James Bond is a big no and a huge dollop of hypocrisy. Leave James Bond to the people that are truly invested in the franchise, or we're going to end up destroying it. That's my slant on things. What's yours? Like, subscribe, share, tell your friends. Until next time, I'm a man in the spare room.